What is going on, guys? Miles here and welcome to my gun guide for the ZK-383, which is a new-ish weapon in COD WW2. It was added a few weeks ago and you can get it by prestiging the cavalry division, and in this video I'll be taking a look at the stats of the weapon and we'll use that information to create a best class setup. So the ZK is quite an interesting weapon because it actually has two rates of fire and you can choose which one you want to use. It has a slower rate of fire of 652 rounds per minute, which is the same as the Type 100, and it has a faster rate of fire of 810, which is the same as the Orso. And if you select the faster rate of fire, the downside is that you'll have much more recoil. The ZK does feel like the two weapons I mentioned earlier when you have the fire rate on either setting, but most of the time I would recommend using the slower rate of fire with this gun, because if you have the fast rate of fire, the recoil is absolutely insane and it is very difficult to control, so you only want to have that on if you're in like a very close quarters situation. The damage range of the ZK is anywhere between 30 and 19, which is pretty standard for most SMGs in the game. It's not great, it's not awful either, and it does mean you're going to get anywhere between a 4 to 6 bullet kill, depending on how far away the person you're shooting is. And as for the range of the weapon, this is fairly interesting because the damage drop off begins much earlier than most SMGs. It begins at only 300 units, but the maximum drop off is actually the best out of all SMGs in the game, which is 1250 units, so if the enemy is that far away, you'll be dealing 19 damage. So it would seem like the ZK is best used in like a medium range situation, but the problem I find with that is that at that distance, the assault rifles kind of just take over, and the really OP SMGs like the MP40 and PPSH will just outgun you anyway. But moving on to some other information, the weapon holds 32 bullets in the magazine with 96 in reserve, which is better than average for SMGs, but it's nothing too special. Like the average for SMGs is like 31 bullets, so nothing great there, but I guess is kind of nice. The ADS time is 160 milliseconds, which is the joint best out of SMGs in the game. However, a lot of the SMGs do have that exact same ADS time. And the reload time is fairly reasonable, which is 1.4 seconds, which is once again pretty average for SMGs. So now we know the stats of the weapon, we can try and create a best class setup, and to be honest, it was quite hard to come up with one for the ZK, because usually when I make a best class setup, I take the weak points of a weapon and then I improve them using attachments and perks and divisions, but the ZK is kind of like two guns in one, and each of the different modes has its own benefits and drawbacks as well, so I did think it was quite difficult to make a class for this weapon. But in the end, I actually came up with two class setups for the ZK which you can use. One of them is more of like a slower pace style, and one is a faster paced, and I'll start with the slow one. And for this, I'll be using the cavalry division with the ZK. I felt like attachments aren't that amazing for the ZK simply because it can improve its rate of fire just by switching modes. So I felt like the cavalry division would work fairly well with the ZK, and that's why I've gone with it for this class setup. For my basic training, I went with Specialist because it feels like that will make you really strong if you manage to get all of the basic trainings with the ZK, and that will help make up for the lack of attachments. And for your lethal, I'm going to use the Satchel Charge because it's a classic combination with the Riot Shield. And finally, for the tactical, I'll use a Smoke Grenade because that's pretty good for taking objectives. My second class is much less focused around taking objectives, and it's more focused around like a run and gun style, and it's mainly inspired by the Scorpion Evo from Black Ops 2 because I love that weapon. And for this class, you're going to only want to use the fast fire rate for the ZK, and you want to completely ignore the slower fire rate. And we're going to select the Airborne division because it's perfect for the run and gun style. You get to fire guns while sprinting and diving, you get to reload while sprinting, you can climb over obstacles faster, and you can sprint faster over time. And this class setup basically involves running around hip firing people, and I wouldn't bother aiming down sights because it takes a long time and the recoil is very difficult to control when you have the fast fire rate enabled for the ZK. So for your attachments, you want to have steady aim because that's obviously going to improve your hip fire accuracy. You're going to want extended mags as well to make sure you don't run out of ammo during a gunfight because that would kind of ensure your death. And I wasn't really sure about a third attachment because none really complement the ZK, but I think maybe using a suppressor isn't a bad idea. It does reduce the range of your weapon, but you're going to be shooting at a very close range anyway, so I don't think it will have a big impact. For your basic training, you're gonna want to have forage, which will help you get ammo back because you'll probably run out of ammo fairly quickly with this fast rate of fire. Any secondary weapon will do. I would recommend a pistol though. And for your lethal, once again, any really works, maybe like a throwing knife or just a regular grenade. And finally, for your tactical, I'd probably recommend just the standard stun grenade. So they are my two best class setups for the ZK, and overall I feel like the weapon isn't that amazing. It is quite mediocre, and I feel like it just doesn't really compete with the likes of the MP40 and the PPSH currently in the game. But the run and gun class setup is pretty fun to use, and I would recommend you guys try it yourselves. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Also comment down below which gun you want to see me make a video on next, but I'll see you guys in another video.